The four biggest banks on Earth are not American. They're not European. They're Chinese. And together they hold more than $25 trillion. That is larger than the entire economy of the United States. And America's biggest bank, JP Morgan Chase, it doesn't even crack the top four. It comes in fifth. So if China owns the biggest banks in the world, does China run global finance? It's the question behind 1,000 headlines. The yuan versus the dollar, East versus West. But size and power are two very different things. And when you follow the money, the real money, moving across borders every single day, the answer might surprise you. Today, who actually runs the world's banks? Let's follow the money. I'm Don Blake, and this is USAFinance, where we hand you everything you need to understand and grow your money with nothing but sourced facts and plain English. No hype, no agenda, no spin. Today we go global. We're going to line up the banking giants of China, America, and Europe and answer a simple question with a complicated answer. Who is really in charge of the world's money? This matters more than it sounds, because the answer touches the dollar in your wallet, the rate on your savings, and the price of nearly everything you buy. Every number on screen comes from S&P Global, the International Monetary Fund, SWIFT, and the bank's own filings. Stick with me. This one is big. Let's start with pure size. Rank every bank on Earth by total assets, the money they hold and lend. And the top of the list is all one color. Number 1, the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, known as ICBC. It holds more than $6.5 trillion in assets, the largest bank on the planet. Number 2, the Agricultural Bank of China. Number 3, China Construction Bank. Number 4, Bank of China. The four biggest banks in the world are all Chinese and all state-owned. Not one of them is private, not one is American. For the everyday saver in Ohio or Texas, that can be a genuine shock. The giants of global banking fly China's flag. Just how big are China's big four together? According to S&P Global, they hold about $25.5 trillion in assets. That is roughly 1/4 of everything held by the 50 largest banks in the entire world. 4 banks, 1 country, 1/4 of the global top 50. So where's America? The largest U.S. bank, JP Morgan Chase, ranks 5th in the world with more than $4 trillion in assets. It's the biggest bank in the Western Hemisphere, and still smaller than any single one of China's top 4. On this scoreboard, it looks like a blowout. China has the biggest banks by a wide margin. If size were the whole story, this video would be over. But size isn't the whole story, not even close. Here's the twist that changes everything. Being the biggest bank is not the same as running the world's money. Think of it this way. A warehouse can be enormous, bigger than every store in town, and still only serve its own neighborhood. That's China's banking system. It is colossal, but most of it operates inside China, serving Chinese companies and China's 1.4 billion people. Real global power isn't measured in assets. It's measured in whose money the world actually uses to trade, to save, to settle deals between countries that have nothing to do with either side. And by that measure, one currency towers over all the others. It isn't the yuan, it's the US dollar. Let me show you just how dominant it still is. When countries save, they don't stuff cash under a mattress. They hold reserves, piles of foreign currency kept by their central banks, and the world overwhelmingly chooses to hold dollars. According to the International Monetary Fund, the US dollar makes up about 57% of all the world's known currency reserves, more than half the planet's savings held in American money. The euro is a distant second, around 20%. And the Chinese yuan? Despite China having the biggest banks and the second largest economy on Earth, the yuan is under 2%. Let that sink in. China's banks are number 1. China's currency, as a global store of value, barely registers. That gap between the size of the banks and the reach of the money is the whole story. Now let's talk about the plumbing, how money actually moves between countries. Almost every cross-border payment on Earth travels through a messaging network called SWIFT, and the numbers here are just as lopsided. According to SWIFT's own data, the US dollar handles close to half of all international payments, year after year, the most used currency in the world by a wide margin. The Chinese yuan, it sits around 2 to 3%, usually in 5th or 6th place, behind the dollar, the euro, the British pound, and the Japanese yen. So the world's biggest banks are Chinese, but the world's payments run on American dollars. When a company in Brazil buys from a company in Thailand, odds are they settle the deal in dollars through the US financial system. You might be wondering, how is that even possible? China is a manufacturing superpower. It's the biggest trading partner for most of the world. So why isn't its currency everywhere? Because being a global currency takes more than a big economy. It takes trust. It takes the freedom to move your money in and out without a government blocking it. And it takes deep, open markets where anyone can buy and sell. China keeps tight control over its currency and its capital. Money can't always flow freely across its borders. For a foreign company deciding what to hold, that control is a risk. And risk is the one thing money runs away from. So the yuan stays small on the world stage, even as China's banks stay giant at home. So why does the dollar win? 4 reasons, and none of them are an accident. 1. Trust. For generations, the United States has paid its debts and never frozen the world's ordinary savings on a whim. 2. Rule of law. Contracts hold up in American courts. Investors know the rules won't change overnight. 3. Depth. U.S. financial markets are the biggest and most liquid on earth. You can move billions in and out in seconds. 4. Convertibility. A dollar is a dollar, anywhere, anytime, no permission needed. Those 4 things, trust, law, depth, and freedom, are what turn a currency into the world's currency. And they are exactly the things that are hard to build and dangerously easy to lose. There's one more arena where America's lead is enormous. The stock market, where the world's companies raise money and investors grow their wealth. Add up every stock market on the planet, and the United States alone accounts for about 46% of the total value. Nearly half of all the world's stock market wealth is listed in America. China, the second largest market, sits around 10 to 11%. The U.S. market is roughly 4 to 6 times bigger. This is why global money keeps flowing toward America. When investors anywhere want growth, safety, and depth, they buy American stocks and American bonds. The banks may be biggest in Beijing, but the world's capital still comes home to New York. Here's where dominance becomes leverage. Because so much of the world's money moves through the dollar and the U.S. system, America holds a lever no other country has. When the United States decides to cut a person, a company, or even a country off from the dollar system, that decision ripples across the entire globe. Access to dollars can be switched off in a way access to yuan simply can't, because the yuan isn't where the world's business happens. This isn't about politics, it's about plumbing. Whoever controls the pipes controls the flow. And right now, the pipes are American. It's the quiet reason the dollar's dominance is about far more than pride. It is real, practical power on the world stage. Now, China sees all of this clearly, and it is not standing still. Beijing has built its own payment network called CIPS as an alternative to the American-led system. It's promoting a digital version of the yuan, and it's signing deals with trading partners to settle some business directly in yuan, skipping the dollar entirely. Little by little, China is building an off-ramp from the dollar highway, and in some corners of the world, it's gaining ground. But the numbers we just saw tell you how far there is to go. Under 2% of reserves, under 3% of payments. Building a real rival to the dollar isn't a 5-year project. It's the work of decades, if it happens at all. So step back and you see it clearly. America and China aren't even playing the same game. China is winning the size game. Its banks are the biggest, its economy is enormous, and it dominates manufacturing and trade in real physical goods. America is winning the trust game. It runs the currency the world saves in, the payment rails the world uses, and the markets the world invests in. One is the world's factory, the other is the world's bank, and its accountant and its vault. Biggest isn't the same as most powerful. China owns the largest banks, but America for now still runs the system those banks have to operate inside. Let's be fair and give China its due, because in some areas it is genuinely ahead. China's banks serve more customers than any others on Earth, well over 1 billion people. Its citizens are among the world's most disciplined savers, which is exactly why those banks hold so much. And in everyday technology, China is ahead of America. Mobile payment apps like Alipay and WeChat Pay turned China into a nearly cashless society years before most of the West. Hundreds of millions of people pay for everything with a phone, instantly, for free. So this isn't a story of one country being backward. China's financial system is massive, modern, and in some ways more advanced than ours. Its reach just mostly stops at its own border. And here is where America still stands alone. The dollar is the world's money. Its savings account, its yardstick, its safe harbor when things go wrong. In a crisis anywhere on Earth, money does not rush into yuan. It rushes into dollars. American markets are where the world comes to raise money and grow wealth. American law is the rulebook global finance runs on, and American banks, while not the biggest, are among the most global, operating in nearly every country on the planet. Size is impressive, but trust is powerful. And trust, built over generations, is the one thing you cannot manufacture overnight, no matter how big your banks are. Now the part that actually touches your life. Why should you, an everyday American, care who runs the world's banks? Because the dollar's status is a quiet, invisible advantage you benefit from every single day. Because the world wants dollars, America can borrow more cheaply than almost any other country. That helps keep interest rates on mortgages, car loans, and credit cards lower than they would otherwise be. Because oil and most global trade is priced in dollars, you never have to swap currencies just to fill your gas tank. The rest of the world takes on that cost. You don't. The dollar in your pocket isn't just spending money. It's a share in the most trusted financial system on earth. Let's make it concrete. A strong, trusted dollar quietly shapes your daily costs. When the dollar is strong, the imported goods filling American stores, electronics, cars, clothes, cost less than they otherwise would. Your money buys more of the world. When you travel abroad, a strong dollar stretches further, turning a trip overseas into a bargain. And because global investors are always hungry for U.S. assets, that steady demand helps fund everything from company growth to government borrowing. Without America paying the sky-high rates a smaller country would, none of this shows up on your bank statement with a label, but it is there, in the background, in nearly every price you pay. Now let's be honest and balanced, because nothing lasts forever. The dollar's dominance is slowly, gradually slipping. Its share of global reserves has drifted down over the past 20 years. More countries are experimenting with trading in other currencies. This trend even has a name, de-dollarization. But slower growth is not collapse. The dollar still sits at roughly 57% of reserves and about half of all payments. No rival is remotely close. The yuan cannot take the crown while China controls who is even allowed to hold it. And history offers a lesson. The biggest threat to a strong currency is usually the choices the home country makes itself. That's the honest picture. No fear, no cheerleading, just the numbers. So what should you actually do with all this? Here are the DOs. General principles, not personal financial advice. Do understand that your everyday money, your paycheck, your savings, your bills, lives inside the dollar system, and that has historically been a position of strength, not weakness. Do keep building a solid financial base, an emergency fund, low interest debt, and steady saving. A strong personal balance sheet matters far more to your life than any headline about currencies. And do stay informed. Understanding how the global money system really works makes you harder to scare and harder to fool, especially when someone online is working hard to sell you panic. Now the don'ts, and these matter just as much. Don't panic over "the dollar is collapsing" headlines. That collapse has been predicted for 50 years, and it hasn't happened. Fear is a product people sell. You don't have to buy it. Don't make big money moves based on a scary video or a viral post. The people shouting loudest about the end of the dollar are very often selling something, usually gold, crypto, or a course. And don't confuse biggest with safest, or a foreign flag with a foreign threat. This is about understanding the system, not fearing it. Calm, informed decisions beat panic every single time. So, who really runs the world's banks? By size, it's China. Clearly and decisively. The four biggest banks on earth are Chinese, holding $25 trillion between them, and America's largest doesn't crack the top four. But by power, by whose money the world trusts, saves in, and uses to do business, it's still America. The dollar is over half the world's reserves and nearly half its payments. The yuan is under 2%. China built the biggest banks. America built the system those banks have to live in. Biggest and most powerful are two different crowns, and right now, they sit on two different heads. Let's put it all together. The world's banks, by the numbers. China holds the top four banks on earth, about $25.5 trillion, a quarter of the global top 50. JP Morgan, America's biggest, ranks fifth. But the dollar is 57% of the world's reserves, the yuan under 2. The dollar handles about half of global payments, the yuan under 3 in 6th place. And the US stock market is nearly half the world's total. China, about a 10th. Biggest banks, China. Strongest money, America. And in your pocket, quietly working in your favor, the dollar. Here's the bottom line. The map of global banking is changing, and China's rise is real, but the dollar's quiet dominance is still one of America's greatest advantages, and it's working for you right now, whether you noticed it or not. At USAFinance, that's the mission. Hand you what you need to understand, keep, and grow your money. Sourced, and in plain English. If you learned something today, subscribe. It's free, and it's how we keep going. And next time, we bring it all the way home. We'll show you how to build real wealth in America, starting from $0. No inheritance, no luck, just a clear, proven path anyone can follow. I'm Don Blake. Make your money work. We'll see you next time.